what's up, guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 1984 AMC Eagle. Up front is a 258 cubic inch straight six, and down below is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this AMC Eagle because this has been on my bucket list for a very long time, and I am so incredibly excited to finally check it off my bucket list. This, to me, is one of the most interesting vehicles of the 1980s. Not only is AMC no longer a company, but this was not only ahead of its time, but it's also way behind the times. It's very, very unique, very interesting, and I'm so excited to finally share the AMC Eagle with you here today. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 4.2 liter straight six under the hood, better known as the 258. Well, there were several 4-cylinders offered, actually 2 4-cylinders offered in this, but what you really wanted was this straight six. Not only is this a homegrown AMC engine, where the 4-cylinder was actually the Iron Duke from General Motors, but this was the most powerful, up at 110 horsepower as opposed to like 81 of the 4-cylinder. But also it's a very, very reliable engine. AMC had very reliable straight sixes throughout most, if not all, of their history. So here we go. 110 horsepower. It doesn't move you in any sort of brisk fashion. Even the 6-cylinder is not that fast. But like I said, it was reliable. It was the fastest they could offer you at the time, and it moved with modern traffic. So that's all you could really ask for from it. Now, like I said, paired to it is a 3-speed automatic transmission. Nothing special. It's fine. It clunks into gear, but other than that, it's propelling me forward. You really wanted this either in the 4 or 5-speed manual that they offered it with. Unfortunately, this one isn't that, but I'll take what I can get to drive an AMC Eagle. Last but not least about the drivetrain, the calling card of the AMC Eagle is the fact that it was a station wagon sedan or coupe that came in 4-wheel drive. And you can select that off to the left of the steering wheel. We'll talk about how in a second here, but that was super special. No car at the time had 4-wheel drive. 4-wheel drive was reserved for big, bulky Jeeps and trucks and equipment. This was a regular car that your mom and dad would drive that had 4-wheel drive, and so these sold very well in inclement weather states, like here in Wisconsin. How does it feel to drive the AMC Eagle? Well, that's the great thing. First of all, it drives mostly like a car. Has the dynamics of a car, steering feels like a car, throttle feels like a car, but that suspension, because it actually adds about 3 inches of lift to the vehicle, not only do you get that lifted look for the 4-wheel drive, but it also is really, really cushy and floaty, something that was starting to go away in the 1980s. This almost feels like a holdover of suspension from the 1970s. It gets that boaty, roll with the waves sort of feeling that, again, cars of the mid to late 80s just didn't have anymore. So it's actually a very, very comfortable ride. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 4 gauges. Off to the left is the tachometer. In the center is the speedometer, only goes up to 85. And off to the right is fuel and coolant temperature. The steering wheel does have a horn button as well as an AMC badge in the center. I love that. And off to the left, we have our headlights, fog lights, and wipers. And then we have our 2-wheel drive selection. So, first of all, you cannot do this while moving. You have to stop the car. But then you have to pull down on this tab, and then you can select 2 or 4-wheel drive. It sort of locks it in place so you don't actually put it into 2 or 4 while moving. And moving out of the door, we have manual mirrors, lock and unlock, that is power, but then manual windows. Moving into the center, we get 2 climate vents. We get our AMC radio. I love this, and it still works, which is very cool. defrost off to the right, as well as a 12-volt outlet / cigarette lighter, and our heat and AC options. So this was an originally AC-equipped Eagle, which is very, very nice. We do also get a little ashtray, of course. If you're going to have a lighter, gotta have the ashtray. And then we have some gauges. Well, we have a clock to the far left, but we have battery voltage, oil pressure, and vacuum to the bottom right. Vacuum is important because that's actually how the four-wheel drive system operates. It is a vacuum-operated system. Then we have the shifter in the center. Obviously, manual cars would have a big manual shifter. This has a little automatic one, and it works. However, what you won't find down here are any cup holders. There is a shelf on the dash. That is not a cup holder by my standards, and so the AMC Eagle fails the big friggin' bottle test. The seats are comfy. They look at first glance like they might be a bench seat, but they are actually individual buckets. They're not amazingly comfortable, but they are bouncy and silly and not hurting my back like I would expect out of 80s seats. 80s cars didn't really have very structured seats. Really, I mean, going back in the 70s, 60s, and 50s, they didn't even have really structured seats, and even before that. So it's very loose in that way. Modern seats were so used to big bolsters and almost like race car level grip on the seats. No, these are very flimsy. You sit on them in the car, that's about it. However, speaking of seats, we do have back seats, so let's go do a back seat review. All right, getting in the back of the AMC Eagle, so freaking cool, and the pattern from the front seats carries on back here. I love when cars used to do buckles on the seats for no reason. These serve no real purpose besides aesthetics, and I think that that is incredibly cool. Now, getting in, it's a little bit less spacious than I would have thought. Now, the headliner is sagging. It's an old car. Give it a break. But even with the headliner up, my head is coming very close to the ceiling. This is not a very high top car, and because the car sits high up, you kind of feel squished a little bit. But I'm in the back of an AMC Eagle. That on its own is very cool. As you can see over here, we do have ashtrays in the doors, of course, gotta have that. We have the cranks for the windows, a little grab handle here, as well as the latch to get in and out. No center console or anything like that, or even on this seat behind me. And of course, knee room isn't great. I could only imagine the coupe version of this was even worse, so the Wagon should be the best off back seat, and it ain't that great. But just the American road trip back here, you know, taking this up into the mountains of Glacier National Park back in the 80s, you know, when not everything was paved, that to me, the idea of that is so incredibly special. And so that is how I feel back here is the great American road trip. And you look up at all this, you know, vinyl and fake wood and whatnot, and it's just such a unique, fun experience. So while I don't fit perfectly, I'm okay with that. Let's hop into the very back. We'll take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space, and then we'll talk about the looks. All right, around the back of the AMC Eagle, and something to note before we actually get into the back is that the gas cap was actually behind the license plate. Very, very cool to see that. But we do have a hatch. There we go. And again, because of the four-wheel drive system, the floor is pretty high up. Now, you do get these nice cargo rollers here, which is really, really cool to see, and you can lift this up. You do get a spare tire underneath, but that was pretty much it. It's not a very low loading floor, and so it's a wagon, yes, but you don't get all of the space in the world. However, if you do want to increase that space, let that down because the struts are not playing friendly today. You can pull this lever, and you can fold this down. And now you have even more cargo space around the back of your AMC Eagle. If that was ever a question, I'm sure many kids laid down back here on many a road trips with the family dog back in the day. So very, very cool to see that. And that is the rear cargo space of an AMC Eagle. Now we gotta talk about the looks. And I love the look of the AMC Eagle, mostly because of the fact that I don't see them often. It is very, very 80s. You notice that they do have that lifted suspension, and you get to say, oh, that's for the four-wheel drive system, which is just super cool. They're super unique, and especially up here in the Rust Belt, they're very, very rare these days. So finding one in general has taken me over 10 years and 2,100 videos to finally find an AMC Eagle to review, so they don't come around all too often. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the AMC Eagle for the first time? Well, as I mentioned, this is a bucket list car for me. I would say my Mount Rushmore of 80s cars would be the DeLorean, this, Mazda RX-7, probably a second gen, and then the Vector W8. I know they really only started selling those in 89, but that to me is like so 80s, way more 80s than the Countach. But this is one of the most pinnacle 80s vehicles because it was Ford with technology. But also look at this interior. Look at all the burgundy and fake wood. If I had to boil down the 80s to three things, it would be burgundy, fake wood, and brown. And it has all three of them in the interior. I love that. But this was also very ahead of its time. Most people say that this is the first crossover because it wasn't fully a car, but it wasn't fully a truck, and SUVs were only starting to come onto the market. In 84, we were just starting to get the Cherokee, and the Bronco 2 was a few years away. The Ford Explorer was almost a decade away. So SUVs didn't really exist. And honestly, that's why we don't get cars like this anymore, is because the SUV fulfills everything that this car set out to do. But back in 84, and when this car launched in 1980, that wasn't really a thing. If you wanted four-wheel drive, you had to buy a pickup truck or maybe like a Blazer, but even the Blazers are so rough and tumble. Broncos are rough and tumble. Everything from that era with four-wheel drive was very in your face. You had to give up a lot of on-road comfort in order to have the niceties of four-wheel drive. This didn't. You didn't have to compromise. You could own a station wagon coupe or sedan that was nice to drive on the road, decent to look at, not too big to get in and out of, didn't have giant axles and all of that, but it had the four-wheel drive when you needed it. And so these sold really well in places like Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin, even my home state of Illinois, because half the year we're covered in snow, and this you could drive around, have that peace of mind of four-wheel drive, again, without having to revert to a pickup truck or something thereof. And this is something that we see now. Again, with the SUV craze of the modern era, this was the first one to do it. This was the first one to blend on-road driving feel with off-road ability and blend it in a proper way. This is the godfather of our current SUV market, whether you like that or not. This car is reliable, it's capable, and gosh darn it, if it's not one of the coolest cars I have reviewed so far this year. It is just so lovely, so iconic, and I'm so incredibly thankful to have had the chance to get behind the wheel of the AMC Eagle. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Matt and Al for letting me borrow their AMC Eagle for today's video. What an amazing opportunity. Matt and Al have a YouTube channel, Wisco Shenanigans, so please go check them out. It will be linked down in the description below. They are absolutely wonderful. They've helped me review dozens and dozens of cars, although I have to say, honestly, this might be my favorite of theirs that I've done because this is just so special. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.